Well, it is a great pleasure this time in Europe and in my country to share, to be with you and to connect to so many people around Europe in this room and listening to us through the social network that are committed to what Ilona has described. It is a very important moment for all of us who believe what Ilona said and what I will say. Meaning, it is important because somehow there are windows of opportunities. They're not open up all the time. There was an important window of opportunity 7 years ago when the regulation was rearranged and the agenda for reform of cohesion policy that I was part of, together with so many people, not just researchers, but lots of general directors of regional policy all over Europe. We made an impact. And it will be my claim, my quick claim in what I will tell you, that we do have a good framework, but it has not been used to the full. And in the work that you will all participate to in the next few months, there is not much time, the implementation of those ideas that 7 years ago were already on the table, it's at stake. Why is there a window of opportunity? Because the more and more people believe today that what you believe in is necessary. And I'm obviously doing the wrong thing, and I'm pointing in the wrong direction. Okay. And I use often, but if you look at the Financial Times, you will get the same message. I mean, there are more and more of the top business and political community of Europe is aware of the fact that there is a disconnection between people and institutions, particularly serious for Europe. And there is, and that is linked to abandoned territories, as my friend and top economist Andres Rodriguez puts it. Many people feel that they have not been taken care of, and they see the bad consequences of what not being taken care of on their life, on their economic conditions, and social accession, and as I will argue in a second, also in not feeling recognized as relevant as they should. But now this is turning into an authoritarian dynamic that is taking different shapes all over Europe, and this is sending a message. I mean, we live in a democracy. This is the process. Things do not happen just... but this message needs to be taken up. So while the Economist is very much aware that you do need to grapple with the problem of regional inequality, the Economist would have not written that 7 years ago. It wasn't. It was criticizing the place-based approach. The top idea was that we shouldn't take care of territorial inequalities because somehow you let them put in pressure and then eventually the growth will spread, okay? So you need big top-down infrastructure project. That was the idea. So this is a major change. It's not, don't underestimate it. This is your ideas getting through, but still it needs to be done. And I still find it some, I should point it there, that's why I have it there, sorry. This is my mistake. Okay, so let's see the how. I will expand the how, because we need not just to know that this is a good opportunity. How do we grab this opportunity? How do we go through this window? First of all, understanding what's going on. There are major divides, and these inequalities within Europe can be measured in terms of wealth. You all know that the wealth inequality has enormously increased. Just a number in my country, we estimated 3 days ago. The top 5,000 people in my country have gone from 2% of the wealth to 10% of the wealth during the crisis. They benefited from the crisis, okay? So obviously there is anger around, but this anger manifests itself in a territorial way, in a way that we understand, because it is between rural areas and urban areas, falling behind cities and thriving cities, and peripheries and urban centers within towns. And this is reflected in what? People, what is impinging on people, you know that. It's not just about economics, guys. It's about income, labor, wealth, but it's also about access to health, the quality of services, the quality of housing. Who is integrated? It's everything. It's our life, which is not just about income. You might not have a big income, but if you live in a thriving community, you will benefit from what's happening. It's also environment, by the way, because the quality of your environment makes your life different, plus allows you to live better. And it's also, as I said before, recognition. Many people around in peripheries and rural areas of Europe don't feel recognized for their values, for their norms. And when you don't feel recognized, what do? You close up. We love communities, but we don't like closed communities. We like open communities, but you close up because you're worried. You're worried of migrants, you're worried of new people coming. You're even worried of your young guys, innovators, because they're innovating too much. You're worrying about changing. You're worrying about diversity. You want homogeneity. And this is producing what a Karen Sennert, an extraordinary analyst in 2005, I like people who predict, had predicted that there will be an authoritarian dynamic, becoming intolerance to diversity, lack of trust, which is what we need for cooperation. So it is a vicious circle, and demand for close communities and tough sanctioning authorities. You're not trusting authorities anymore, so you want at least give me a sanction, okay? Right, this is the picture that we have, and this scenario is particularly threatening for that little thing that it was at the top of that I immediately sent to my country, Europe. What we have achieved, peace, our capacity to travel, the chance for our kids to go and study abroad and then come back. Everything else is at risk. We have promised a bit too much. Some friends say the European Pillar of Social Rights was a beautiful design, but rights is a dangerous word. If you tell people they have many rights, then you don't know how to deliver them, then you have a problem. And there is an expectation which has not been met. Numbers, you know the regional inequality, apart from cyclical adjustment, has not been reducing and possibly has increased in the last 30 years. It is not yesterday's, okay? It is not yesterday's. Okay, so we do have cohesion policy. It has performed an important role. Unfortunately, we never able to do counterfactual. We don't know exactly how worst we would be, but we know more or less it would be worse. But it hasn't done as much as we could have done. This is the issue of windows of opportunity. I completely lost track. I didn't start my timing, but I should do it, because I know how to adjust the time while I'm speaking. So I'm sorry, I make you losing a second, but I need my chronometer. Okay. Did I speak for about 5 minutes until now?
Oh, you have half an hour.
No, I do know, but...
So you have about another 15, 20 minutes.
Okay. And what do we need? We need some people say this is inevitable. We do know that it is not inevitable. This is an important passage. I will quickly go over it, but pause on it, because you do have people say there is nothing to be done about it. This is technologies. This is China coming onto the game. They're putting pressure on our labor force. So there is not much to be done. I don't have time to share with you, but we all know that it is not true. We made mistakes. We made wrong policies. We've made many mistakes. Some beautiful mistakes are examined. Some are beautifully examined by Danny Roderick at macro level. But let's come to our field, which is territorial. We did make mistakes. We repeatedly designed institutional reforms, important needed to be done institutional reforms, but we used a one-size-fits-all. And remember, one-size-fits-all is not who does the reform. Public administrators, us technocrats. Where do we live? In big towns. So it is not one general size. It's the size of the areas that we know about. So we design reforms which are good, maybe, but for some part of the population, and some areas they are not adapted to territories. Plus, as my friend Kevin Morgan, the Welsh economist, say, we had a bit of a metrophilia. So we decided that the world is destined to concentrate in about 40 years in metropolitan town. Yes, true, we know, we all read Marshall. We know there are fantastic agglomeration effects in towns, but there are also troubles. We need a balance, you need policies. And you don't need to deprive the rural areas from people, otherwise the areas decay on us living in urban areas, by the way. If you live in Liguria, where the mountains are, you know what I mean about. It's a region that it is at risk. So the national social cost of not taking care of territories or depriving territories is enormous. And we did that. And then this is a very important point, because it's the real risk that cohesion policy itself runs sometimes. That we compensated these mistakes by making a third, even worse mistake. We threw money at territories by doing what we called 7 years ago subsidizing, whether it's training, infrastructure, or assumed research, which is in fact giving some money to replenish the funds of a company who's not doing very well. We basically transfer resources to areas that were falling behind, but by doing so, we deprive them of the strength to change. And even sometimes, in my country, Why would the south of Italy still be where it is otherwise, if not for this mistake? We actually even created a wrong effect on local leading class, elected officials, who slowly become, rather than innovators in the changes and the voice of the people, they became the rentier, playing the role of intermediaries from money from the towns or Brussels and the people. So they became, as economist Daron Acemoglu clearly explains to us, enemies of change. Because if there is no change, I keep getting the money and I keep being in power, thanks to the fact that I give money to the people. So now the vicious circle. This is why we need a different approach. An approach that is based on two pillars. You know so much about it because you practice it every day, but let's for a second remember that behind whatever we do, there is a reasoning on knowledge and a reasoning on power. Why do we believe in integrated approach, in a place-based approach? Because we believe that we have to solve, that the development is about solving these two problems. Knowledge, because we do know that much of the knowledge that is necessary for changing a place is there, but not all. And this knowledge needs to be extracted from the people. You need to give a chance to the people to speak out. And very often they're not giving a chance. I mean, it is not just when Ilona said participation, people, it's not just because it is important by itself, because people need to be involved, and only if they're involved, they will indeed participate. But also they have some of the knowledge. And if they don't feel that there is really being designed, the integrated strategy that you were discussing with Finland or in my inner areas, they will not reveal the knowledge. They will not participate in a heated, in what Amartya Sen calls a heated, informed, open debate. So there is an issue of knowledge instructions, but also of being open. We're not Luddites, we're not communitarians, inverted commas. We know that there are major competence centers around the world, and we want the local knowledge to interact with external knowledge at a pair. So policy is about making them feeling confident that they can speak out and connect to the big university without being eaten up, which is often small people in peripheries or rural areas don't want to open up because they feel that they are coming, the corporation is coming. They don't want to speak to a corporation is coming to rob us. No, you need to speak to large corporations, but you need to do it from a standpoint where you feel confident and you can negotiate something that is good for you. So knowledge. And then power. Are the local elites part of the solution? Fundamental. The mayors. You do nothing. This is what Europe is all about. But they're also sometimes part of the problem because we turn them into rentier. So they're part of the problem and the solution. You got to go through them, but you need something else. And this is Europe. This is where Europe comes. This something else is a strength from outside, a public one, which sometimes can be a national one, but it needs to be held, the national one. I'm talking about my country, it needs to be held by Europe. So these two forces together, the European national, can play a role of a fair and impartial spectator. This is my favorite expression, comes from Adam Smith. It has been resurrected and rejuvenated by Amartya Sen. A fair and impartial spectator is a spectator that is participating in the game. And he's saying, I'm entrusting you local authorities with power, providing that you play some rules of the game, providing that you do open up to the people. I'm not entrusting you with money, and then you do what you want with it in your closed rooms, because that is going to produce disasters. I'm entrusting you, providing there are some rules. This is the game. This is where EU value added. This is discussion of EU value added and looking for it as if what is really the EU value added? And then all this discussion on subsidiarity that has taken us too far. The EU value added, as I write here, is two things. First, that he can play a role of impartial spectator for a simple reason. He's far away enough from local authorities not to fall into the risk of short-term return. What is a short-term return for a politician? That is very close. I give you the money, you give me the votes. I give you the money with no control, you give me the votes. Europe is far away enough to not to do that. So this is the amazing value added. By the way, for those of you who are in love with the US Constitution, I am, and have read the Federalist Papers. The Federalist Paper, if you look, the big argument of the Federalist Paper in favor of concentrating some power in the federal government, you know how US came about, was to dilute factions. Because at federal level, you are not captured anymore by factionful aspects. So that's the main value added of Europe. And also, since I'm a very practical person, a political economist, there is also has the Europe the incentive to do it? You should always ask yourself when you are attributing to an institution a role to play, has it got the incentive? Yes, of course it has. Because if Europe doesn't reconnect to the people through this approach, it will not survive. It will not survive. This is clear to all of us. We are in an unstable situation. Either Europe moves forward or Europe moves backward. It cannot stay where it is. So Europe, if they pause a second, if all the commissioners stopped a second, all of them, before speaking, with no reference to yesterday's unreasonable remark on my country by one of them, if they all pause, they understand it is in Europe's interest to do what we believe in. What do we believe in? You know too much about it, so I can be fast because I want to spend my last minutes on what should we be doing in the next few weeks. But let's remind just the key words. So what is the place-based approach? You all know it. I like it to reconnect it to the concept of equality that Amartya Sen has put on the table, which in his most updated version is sustainable substantial freedom. Substantial freedom is not that we are all identical because we are all diverse. It's to give us a chance to be diverse. It's to give us a chance to live the life we would like to live, and also sustainable, to make sure that our kids and our nephews will also have a chance, not smaller than ours, okay? Sustainable substantial freedom. It's a very liberal concept. It's not constraining anybody. It's not imagining a flat world. It's imagining a diverse world where everybody's given a chance. Fine. This is a place-based approach. It wants to trigger endogenous changes in places which do not have the strength to trigger them. Some places do not need the policy, but not because they are rich. You can have a rich places that is falling. So you need policies for all areas. But you need policies in areas that don't have with enough strength by themselves, and they do need or can be held by an impartial spectator. What is the role of an impartial spectator? 7 catching words. Well, they're obvious, and you know them, to make sure that the space for heated, informed, open, and reasonable debate. On reasonability, we could spend a session, but I would love one day, and I'm ready to have one session of what reasonable means. It's very important, it goes down to the ground on how we worked. Debate. To build a shared vision, as surely your example will show. If you don't have a vision, sometimes I hear, although there might be questions about that, let me not deviate. Entrusting the elected elites with responsibility, conditional on that you are ready to do point number 1. And I'm there to make sure. I'm there all day. I'm not there once every 6 months or once a year. I'm there working with you from the national government and from the EU. Drawing the boundaries, a very delicate issue that again could be part of a whole session because we always say place, but how big should be the place? A quarter, an area, a town. And what I claim and what I've experimented, I wouldn't share with you any thought if I hadn't tried it and seen, because this is practical. The design of boundaries is part of the policy process. It shouldn't be done before the policy process. Nobody should be sitting down in any town and decide what the boundaries are. The boundary is the first thing that you should allow people to show that these are the right boundaries. So what kind of aggregation of municipalities? The municipalities that seem to be sharing a vision, that seems to be wanting to work together, that seems to be having similar opportunities and problems, okay? So determination of boundaries, using outcome indicators, the result-oriented reform, using outcome, but not decided outside, giving a chance to people to decide what their outcome is, not over-imposing on them a structure of outcome indicators, meeting, procedure, administration, in which we decide what the indicators are. We design the method. We want to be sure the indicators are statistically waterproof, but you have to express and measure your achievements in terms of what you believe it is important. I want to be sure that you're not doing just blah, 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 and forget what you are aiming at. I want to be able to measure what you're doing, but you have to choose what the measurement is. Point number 5, very delicate, because there were no administrators, it looked like, but the trouble of us administrators, I've been for 18 years of my life in one place, 18 years of my life in another place, is that we sometimes overestimate our knowledge, we write it's not the fact that the rules are complicated, they are complete contracts, that what American Anglo-Saxon call complete contract. We write everything, we think we know everything and we design the whole process. We do not know things enough at the beginning of the process, so the regulations should be incomplete, yes, incomplete. Who completes them? They are completed on the ground according to the situations, under the guidance of a fair and impartial spectator. Otherwise, everybody writes its own rules, of course. So this is a delicate issue, but it's a very important issue. And 6, you know that, go beyond the sectorial ground, making the sectorial intervention space aware. And finally, for all these 6 things to hold together, you do need to have multidisciplinary, very qualified teams at the disposal of the impartial spectator. Why? Because this is an interactive process between the spectator and the people on the ground and the local authorities, the national authorities, and this is not to be left to a meeting every year. A meeting every year, you say you did well, you did badly, or you strike a balance, or you say procedure, procedure, procedure. You need somebody to interact, because if it is an issue of knowledge, all the actors need to learn, and you learn by being on the field. Okay, these are the ingredients. As you probably know, I do believe, and I stated that the change that came about in the previous regulation is somehow adequate. This is my daring comments. I've already made it 6 months ago. I've been trying to sustain that, and I've been trying to argue that the real problem, there might be adjustments, but the real problem is about the implementation. And you know that, because in the all areas, the outcome reform, it has been done. I wouldn't rewrite one line, but it is not being implemented. It is not being believed in, and people and monitoring communities and communities are not being given, except in a few cases, the real chance to choose their outcomes. The place level ownership, the most important issue for this audience, yes, there was a turn, but only today, at least a year ago, only 9% of the funds seems to be allocated to integrated projects. And this is prevented by things that we should change. There is still a very strong drive to have sectorial silos coming even from the division of the 5 funds. This is to be done. The very existence of the division of funds is a disincentive to do integrated approach. It is a fact. Call for tenders. Yeah, fantastic solution for us, because we write it well, we are okay with the Court of Auditors. But very much what happens is that territories are developing a vision, have to cope with complete contracts with the supply of funds, rather than the supply of funds having to cope with the demand. So you've got the wrong thing. So the integrated approach is prevented or deviated or distorted by the use of tenders. Thank you very much for pointing that. I went behind in the back, but I'm towards the end of it, but not towards the beginning of the. Sorry, and thank you for pointing it out. And also the fantastic work that the European Commission does hasn't got enough human resources on the ground. And if you don't have enough human resources on the ground, you cannot interact and implement an integrated approach, or you cannot play the role of fair impartial spectator. The public debate, I love the change in the Code of Counterpart Partnership. I love the reference, finally, not just to establish intermediaries, but to beneficiaries in general. But is it being implemented? You know more than I do about it. I don't feel it is enough. Very important, the connection with the European semester, a very delicate issue, something that wants to be reinforced, but pause a second. Is cohesion policy being used as a way to sanction people who are not doing enough one-size-fits-all reforms? Or is cohesion policy considered to be the tools through which an open-ended national reform is turned into territorial, is adjusted to the places? Obviously, we like the second, because we need the reform of education to be adjusted to the different needs of a rural areas of an urban area. But this is not sometimes what Brussels had in mind. That's not what many other people who do not perceive the territorial opportunity as an opportunity. But it's not a matter of regulation. It's a matter of how it is politically implemented. And finally, and lastly, the social inclusion aspect, a very delicate aspect. There was an improvement in the assigning funds to social inclusion, but there is an incoherence between the demand of being socially included in Europe and how little orientation towards social inclusion is there. Remember, the social inclusion, you don't do it only by giving money for social excluded. Social inclusion is mostly done by doing projects that have allow a development of a place. So social inclusion should be within the design. So if this is the case, the Finland example, the Italian example, you can go, this is just for you to go on the web if you want. Some of you know about it. This is an example of how, with the existing European regulation, the integrated approach can be done. Fighting difficulties, fighting with the bids, fighting the controversies, but it's happening, okay? It's happening. There are 2 million people, 1/5 of my country, 1/5 of my country, it's not a small thing, is being tackled. 1,200 mayors are working in this. So this is just the proof that what I said is not fantasy. The existing regulation allowed it for it to be done, but it could be improved and it should be improved. And I really hope that in the next few months we give a chance to make sure that territorial approach is not just one inlet, is not just one piece of an important picture. It is being given stress even in the multi-annual framework, which was announced a month ago, but it's that you can still perceive there that it is not being considered the way in which the whole of the funds should be spent with care for the territorial aspect. And here is my final slide. It hasn't changed much from what I argued a few months ago on invitation by the European Commission. Some of these things that I will remind you in a second, you might say, hey, Barca, I mean, they haven't done it. Are they going to change? Are they going to unify the funds? No. They haven't proposed it. And maybe we will not get it. But if we don't push for change, we never get change. If you don't ask for 100, you never get 70. I never understood people who do compromise before even having a battle, saying they will not accept it. Okay, then what are we for? What do we represent? What about our ideas? The division of the European cohesion policy in 5 funds is fundamentally wrong. It increases the amount of regulation. It increases the amount of people dedicated to not properly allocated. And if you unify, you could free human resources and strengthen the Commission. Now, if we keep pushing it, maybe we're not going to get that, but we get something close to it. We'll make the other side thinking and pondering that maybe we have a point. So take these points with this attitude. The first one is much more realistic. There is lots of room to achieve results on the first point. How is the connection with the semester? There is a feeling there should be a connection, and we should push, I think, a lot in the direction of making sure that, A, as John Bachler and other people have suggested, the semester should have a strategic focus, which it does not have now. If the semester, we're talking about the big guys, the big decision, ECFIN, if the semester had a strategic framework and countries were to discuss in their yearly documents, in the semester process, then cohesion policy would have a chance to be perceived as this tool through which the education redesign, the labor market design, the corporate governance design falls onto people's heads and takes the shape that is needed for different territories. There is a unique opportunity for Europe to connect to the people. And this is the first point, plus there are a tiny little other point. You hear a lot of politicians these days imagining democratic forum. I mean, Macron in France has put this phrase on the ground. It expresses his feelings that we should reconnect. But what are they? How do we arrange them? Well, cohesion policy has already them. A monitoring committee, properly done, according to the European Code of Conduct Partnership, is a democratic forum. They exist all over Europe. What an amazing tool at the hands of people who want to protect Europe. So the connection with the European semester is possibly the area where we still have more of a chance to get through. The connection with the European social pillar, this is a very good point. I think there is lots of room there. Imagine it, what can we offer? Well, we can offer a ground on which some prototypes of a Euro-wide social model can be experimented. We are all every national member state is very aware and very proud of its own social contract. We know that we can't decide in Brussels suddenly how major social arrangements, but we can experiment them within cohesion policy, with cohesion funds. We could experiment in 27 member states some typologies of helping children, for example, just to go back to Tony Atkinson. So again, the European cohesion policy and a territorial integrated approach is a ground where you can experiment without impinging on national social contract. You can experiment that. Point number 3. It could still be done. It could still be done. It doesn't require the change of treaties. Reducing the number of ordinary controls that today multiplied by unifying, by entrusting the role of Brussels to national authorities, exactly like who have become part of a European system. The central bank is organized in this way, the European Central Bank. It can be done. There is nothing to prevent it. It is being discussed in Brussels and then pushed out. Point number 4, I already mentioned, possibly the most difficult one. Still, the unification of the funds, but still a battle to do to get something. And finally, point number 5, somehow the most important one. I call it the 500 new pioneers, the new scouts, the new whatever, call them the way you want. What I feel, I've been working on cohesion policy as a minister, as a public administrator, on the ground, everywhere, at every stage. I tell you, if Brussels had, in my country, 40 people, 40 young people, 40 extraordinary people coming from universities, in different fields, anthropology, economics, law, statistics, environment, working in the regions, 4 of them in Sicily. I can tell you 4 bright young guys in Sicily, working there 250 days a year, interacting with the president of the region, interacting with monitoring authorities. They would change the role of the European Commission from that to that. And I've argued with Brussels. Remember, it would cost 1.5, 2 billion euros. Let's go down to the number. What it is, 1.5 useless motorways somewhere. Okay? Not that all motorways are useless. Don't take me that. But we easily built wrong ones, because it is more easy to make a major mistakes and then you say, no, this is technical assistance, this is more money thrown away. No, this is 500 people, not technical assisting Brussels, working individually for Brussels, individually, because they need to act. This is again doable, This is doable. I stop here because there are so many other things. I haven't even read yesterday's regulation. I don't know what changes are being suggested. And I'm not even looking forward to see a matching between that and this is not the issue. The issue is that we have a negotiation in front of us. It will be tough. It will be interesting. Let's remember that we have a window of opportunity. It will not come back. It will not come back. And we have it now more than 7 years ago to fully enact what we conceived altogether. Gender for Reform was just capturing ideas. To do now what we conceived 7 years ago. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor. Super. Thank you very much, Professor. If you can sit down there, and then we will take some questions. We'll use Slido as well. Very, very interesting address and message, and a lot of points that you have made. I have a number of questions to ask, and I'll ask maybe 1 or 2. Some of them you've already really addressed in your presentation, but let's maybe just take one. We know taking a territorial approach within cohesion policy, it's sometimes associated with fragmented local investment that somehow the perception is lacks European added value. How do you overcome those perceptions, whether they're right or wrong? And you can press this.
I love these questions because the perception is founded, meaning we do see lots of fragmentation. And the real problem, and fragmentation is suspicious, but not necessarily wrong. And this is the problem. We need a tool, so you ask me how do you cope with this criticism? You cope it by saying what really matters. You cope it at a theoretical level and practical level. Theoretical level by saying that what really matters is not the size of the projects, but is the size of the strategy. So you can have an enormous 1.5 billion euros project that lacking a strategy, meaning you haven't thought about why you're doing it, what outcome is coming out, why you're building that motorway. You're supposed to reckon what analysis of demand, of tourism, of transport, of need of people is that responding to. If you don't have that strategy, that enormous project that will not raise suspicion, but it will be closed, the motorway 7 years after, as some have. But also you have very small, tiny projects that are a result of that compensating approach, i.e. you give subsidies to the local areas and they spend it by doing training, by rebuilding things useless. Again, what matters is the vision. In other words, small projects can be the result of useless compensating subsidies, or they can be the implementation of a vision. If I work in one of these territories and people come up with their projects are very small. They are about, we take 70 minutes for the ambulance to arrive instead of 30. I'm not going to live in a place where I have 70 minutes in the ambulance. And the projects through which you adjust that problem is a 500,000 euros project. It's small. So the question, so the short answer is, the only way is to make sure that people implementing it, authorities, tell us what the strategy according to which, what is the vision, what is how you expect that place to change 10 years from now, and why those 120-liter interventions are part and necessary to integrate it, to combine together to produce that result.
And that's not happening now, you're saying?
It is happening because some amazing authorities all over sometimes do it. And you read the thing. I was in Potsdam. Some things are being done now in a difficult area of Germany. And I was reading, was with Minister Schneider of that region, state of Germany. And you read their papers, and you read them, and you immediately see in the first 5 lines that they do have a vision. It's not difficult to convey to the others whether you do have a vision or not, but often that is not what we demand. We demand compliance with procedure. And through compliance with procedure, you cannot detect whether the fragmentation is wrong or right.
And I mean, on the same theme, you talked about the need for Europe and European and national role to be an impartial spectator. But at the same time, you talked about the dangers of local mayors and money equals votes, so the temptations to maybe apply funding to certain things that will favour certain political forces. So, but how does the European national role remain an impartial spectator while also ensuring you don't have corruption at a local level and misuse of funds?
Well, let's put it that way. I mean, as in every field, as Amartya Sen says, there is 1% of Jesus Christ and 1% of nasty people. The 98% of the people tend to be both. I mean, they can be both in their life, okay? So policy making is the same thing. You need to create an incentive, which is partly moral, partly monetary, partly constraining, to make sure that the mayors, they have a double. Imagine a capable mayor who has two strategies. An easy one, carry on what he did all the time, carry on spending. He's not doing anything illegal. Don't take me wrong. He's simply distributing money in an unreasonable way to make sure that there is no social tension. So he's obviously not changing. Good people leave because they're bored of it. But he also has another strategy, which is slightly more difficult. He hasn't done it yet. It's risky. He might fail and not be re-elected, okay? He is not a bad guy. So the impartial spectator, meaning the combination of Brussels and a national government, or the national government pushed by Brussels, with these 500 young guys that keep your eyes on you all the time, these two things together change the balance, give also in a good sense, give the mayor the sense that they have an ally, that they have somebody that is looking at the results and is helping them in case he's taking the innovative way and is not capable to do it. Often it's a matter of feeling that you maybe can't. You don't have the capacity. Don't worry. I'm with you. I will sustain you. I will direct you. This is the role of impartial spectator. And I'm telling you with this mood that I have sometimes to become passionate, because while I'm speaking, I think about human beings that I work with. I think about mayors who have changed their mind, and I've seen them changing their mind through our and Brussels' presence.
Okay. Thank you for those answers, Professor Barca. Now let's open it out to the floor. We also have Slido as well, so do feel free to put your questions through Slido. Would anybody physically, shall we say, want to ask the professor or make a point, a comment on his address so far? We've got people with microphones and we've got our Slido questions. So will we go to the Slido then first, because we seem to have plenty of them here. So first question, Professor, how do you address the very important social challenges raised by yourself without a real political leadership at an EU level?
We go down to the... political leadership doesn't come up in the vacuum. Political leadership is like the mayors I told before. I mean, there might be some very bad ones and there might be some very good ones, but the majority are deciding whether to be very good or very bad. It has to do with us as citizens, as voters, us as, what was the distribution of roles of experts and so far and so on. This is why it makes sense to have something like ESPON and putting pressure. Political leadership emerges. Let me make an example, otherwise I'm vague. I'm a reader and in love with the history and with the story of Lyndon B. Johnson. Okay? Lyndon B. Johnson. He wasn't exactly a very progressive guy. He made lots of, he was a pretty rascal politician. During his young guys, he even had Mexican guys changing ballots in order to be elected at the primaries against Stevenson. So we're not talking about a good guy. But the guy's made the most amazing reforms, the social reforms of the US. Why did he do them? Why did he use his enormous capacity to run the Senate? Because he had an enormous pressure, because he has Martin Luther King and a movement around the country that put pressure on him. And for him to be given to history, he did it, and he knew how to do it. So, I mean, not everybody, but almost everybody can be turned into a leader. Don't take that as an alibi for us not to act.
Okay, in fact, these numbers beside thumbs up mean number of people who voted to say they're the questions that they would also favourite. But actually, can we go to the third one there, because that was second at one stage. What tools, so you talk about the 500 people on the ground, what tools should the 500 use to create trust and a working connection between citizens and the Commission? Good question.
Absolutely good question. I'm figuring out my 5, a Belgian, a Bulgarian, a British, I was about to say. Well, maybe yes, he can, because he will be taken on board in spite of his nationality in Sicily. What should he do? Well, he should first of all, he should win the trust of both sides, the authorities and the citizens. This is the game. You win the one of the authorities, making sure that you have some tools that they lack. They do lack tools. So you see what tools they lack, what capacity they don't have, what they want to deliver. I mean, they are a politician in charge, so they have the responsibility to choose, and you provide them because you have Brussels behind. So providing, at the same time, you say, hey, I'm here to make sure that the code of conduct of partnership is carried on. Monitoring committee, first monitoring committee, these guys are sitting down, they interrupt the meeting. I'm being practical, because they interrupt the meeting saying, this meeting is over, because the rules of the game are not being respected. We are resuming the work tomorrow. Well, the impartial spectator is a tough guy, okay?
Can you see that happening?
Sorry?
Can you see that actually happening?
I've seen amazing functionaries of Brussels being very tough, but not being given a chance to be tough ex ante. They end up being tough ex post. And when you're tough exposed, you're not effective, but you're killing everything. You're killing the good and the bad. So I do see the capacity of Brussels to be tough, but I want Brussels to be tough ex ante in the process, and it could make a change.
Would anybody, yes, do we have a microphone? Great, because I saw you. making a point. Yes.
Thank you. No, I would like to take from this point of being tough, not ex post, but pre, and listen to your 5 recommendations or your 5 statements. And from my experience, I come from Barcelona, how you can see that if the European Union has not the tools, or I haven't seen that as a citizen, to manage the states, the national states, to be part of that. Because in a way, in your presentation, what I miss is the conflict that exists between states, the European Union states, and the lower levels. Because there are many states that are not interested, the European Union, to cross that level of power. And I would like you to say something about that. Thank you.
Mike.
A very important point. In fact, I'm very sad to see that my country is not part of a very important initiative that the Commission has taken, that Bulgaria is part of, of capacitation of backward regions. It's a very important thing. Then Italy didn't want to be part of it. But that was, my answer to you is that Brussels should have been tougher with my country, saying either you do it or the tools are there. The chances of Brussels to stop funds to countries is very high. It is simply not properly used. It is used because there are procedural mistakes, because the audit and control has not been designed, which is right. It should be done. But it doesn't guarantee any effectiveness. So all I'm saying is that by using not adding any other sanction, by using the present power, the same power that Brussels exerts on Italy going beyond 3%, the same, together with the presence of very good people, because if you don't have the very good people on the ground, then Brussels doesn't know how and what and under which conditions to ask for. So I see it with the present system possible. It's the political willingness to do it that lacks.
Okay, we'll take one comment here as well from this gentleman, and then we'll go back to our Slido question. So just up here behind the pillar.
All right.
Yeah. And then keep your questions coming in through Slido. For those of you also online, please keep them coming in because we will go back to them.
Hello. Hi. Kind of a step forward from the last question, because we've all been working with the Commission in different circumstances, and the perception is, possibly the reality is that the Commission is stepping back. So you suggest the Commission should step forward and engage locally, but what we see is the Commission systematically stepping back. A, because they got increasingly worried or scared of the pressure of member states, ministries, and B, because they also, it's my point, I guess, increasingly lacking the technical capacity. So it's not even technocracy, because there's a lot of outsourcing of competencies, and it's becoming a kind of a funding mechanism. So it's kind of a stale situation where I don't see really where to go. But
unfortunately, I do agree with your description of what has been going on, but you say there are 2 obstacles. One is political. And the beautiful thing about politics is that you can go over the Yangtze. I mean, it's a matter of deciding it. They need to understand, and this is my concern, Ilona, about the multi-annual. The feeling of that document is a feeling in which we could not cut cohesion policy more, so we have cut it only. There is not a feeling that, hey, we have a tool, but still we could make it. So anyway, the political. The second one, you're right, but let's not put too much blame on the Commission. Why did they do that also? Because what happened is politics again. The pressure on the Commission coming from the European Parliament was only about frauds and irregularities. And if the Commission is called to the Parliament only to discuss that and not to answer the question, why is the south of Italy not moving ahead, not about content, and then you go back to your general director and say, reinforce the audit and control. So you are investing 140, don't know how more or less the DG Regio, don't know the others. And this is a vicious circle. So once again, let me say that it's a political issue. If politics say, what are we going to look at is effectiveness, we are going to move the audit and control to reduce the number of steps in the way I suggested. And at the same time, we allow you for reinforcing and reinvesting. You do a new DeLorean I mean, that was Jacques Delors took on board amazing bunch of guys, and you don't decentralize to the outside. But yes.
Okay, this one is getting 12 votes of approval. Since we're at an ESPON seminar, what role can or should ESPON play in the next cohesion policy?
Well, I think, as I said, I wouldn't say that ESPON has. I was speaking to an ESPON seminar, and I think we have in this place, and this is why I not only came here, but I joined the effort that ESPON is making to have a role, to have an active role. I think we can forget about my proposals, taking into account my proposals, your proposal, your ideas. We should put on the floor. In the debate in the next 6-9 months, some changes, tactically putting pressure. We do have the strengths. You are directed by somebody who has the strength to do it. We should just don't think that the only question we shouldn't ask is who will listen to us, because we don't see a leader at the moment. That doesn't matter. The wind, unfortunately, is with us. The next months are going to be very tough months in Europe. The need to reconnect to people, and we do offer a chance to reconnect to people. So let's do a very good job, as it is being done by the people who are now working on it, and I'll contribute to it as much as I can, and will be sustained. If I got to say anything, I would suggest that a connection at national levels to active citizens organizations is at this stage something that should be possibly strengthened in terms of making sure that the message that we send is received by active citizens organizations around Europe.
And just, you mentioned your own country clearly going through tremendous political uncertainty at the moment, and it's interesting that word you used in the past, authoritarian dynamic. Just for Italy alone, how do you think now, you think maybe you're running out of time, things can be improved to connect more with people in regions and cities and a better place-based approach?
Absolutely appropriate, on the point. Thank you for the question. First of all, Italy, what happened in Italy is the demonstration of these tensions. And as Andres Rodriguez Pose suggested, the people vote was not so much a cry for attention, but it was a sense of, well, you explained to us that there is no future for our periphery, for our south, for our rural areas, so we'll tell you something. There is no future for you, establishment, either. That is the message, okay? So it is exactly on the point. But there is something more subtle in that I should answer you. What could be done? Well, to be subtle and fine and to have a vision. One of the both parties that are sometimes called populist, that have now won, they got 50.5, and if go to election, they will go probably 60%. They both have within their soul a territorial and a participatory need. One of the two, the old one, the League, is very active in the north. If you look at the map of Italy that we've seen before, they're very active in many, many areas where we're working. So again, if we put on the ground substance, methodologies, reconnection to the people, attention to the territories, you can play a role within any political context. So don't say, the populists have won, the Europe is over. This is suicidal. You got to say these parties have won because people are very angry. What are people demanding? How can we approach them? Territories. If you say territories, participation, the two very forces that are now won have within their own body many people, many young guys who couldn't come up in politics through other parties, through establishment, that are finding their way to come out, that could listen to these territorial messages. This is one of the reasons why territorial message is so strong, is so not strong, is so, has got such an opportunity now.
And let's just take, before we go, that question there with 12 votes of approval. What lessons can we learn from the mistakes of the wrong policies that have caused territorial inequalities?
that we shouldn't strengthen and adjust only, we talk about Brussels, the human resources, that there has been a deterioration of the quality. I talk about my country. There are some countries in Europe where things have been different. Let's put it that way. One of the lessons is that the reason why many ministries, sectoral ministries, the education ministries, the health ministries, sometimes even state or regions, administrations, the reason why is they are so sectorial, they are so procedural, is that the people that they have employed are over. Are over. They belong to a culture that it's old. So there is an issue of renewal. Certainly in my country, there is an issue of major renewal. With the present, I'm very frank, with the present Ministry of Education of my country, it's hard to do any integrated approach because you are eliciting knowledge from the people, you are developing fantastic projects that are place-based, designed on the needs of people, they're measured, they got desired outcomes, they have got evaluation, but they cannot be implemented because they do not square with a one-size-fits-all. And the reason is not only that you have a law, but the people in the administration are not flexible enough. They're not adequate to a new way, the one that Chuck Sable called experimental administration, experimental democracy. This is the new way of governing, and some people are inadequate. So one of the lessons, let me be very straight, is that integrated approach works not only when we manage to have Brussels with us and design the vision, but also when somebody is responding to us at regional or national level that understands and administer in a more modern way. So this is a very important lesson that we have. And that obviously is also an obstacle to what we believe in.
And just finally, before we go, Professor, we mentioned that the European Commission proposals on their multi-annual financial framework have been published. You said you haven't looked at them yet. What are your fears then in terms of strengthening a place-based approach in future cohesion policies in terms of those proposals? Are you afraid with the way things are going that there'll be less maybe strengthening of a place-based approach?
The signals in terms of words, in terms of identifying the item territorial as relevant, there is a positive signal in the previous document. I haven't seen the one yesterday. I'm talking about a multi-annual financial framework. My fear, you talk about so it is still open. My fear is that is a bad compromise. Is a bad compromise between the people which we trust, who believe that territorial approach is important, that urban areas should be at the center, that the rural policy should be strengthened within the agricultural policy, and the people who think that all these, let's face it, we should put all this money on major research and innovation process, on Horizon and so far and so on. This is just subsidies. There are these two forces in Brussels and in many states, okay? You can imagine a good compromise. A good compromise is people sitting at the table understanding they're both wrong. You see what I mean? Truly having a dialogue and influencing each other. A bad compromise is a bit of money for each of the two. Why this is a very bad compromise? Because that means that if you still allow money for cohesion policy with the idea that at the end of the game it's truly just keeping people quiet, you are not going to put intellectual energy, you're not going to invest in human resources, you're going to carry on business as usual. And business as usual, believe me, for cohesion policy is not good. So this is my fear, that I observe a fight of culture, an interesting fight, and I fear the way they might not merge into a vision, but they might just find a compromise, a bit of money for everybody. This is my worst nightmare.
Okay, well, sorry to end on a fairly negative viewpoint, but yes, go ahead.
No, but nightmares are necessary to see what the dream. The dream is that they do have a conversation, a dialogue, and I think that ESPON, who is not ideological about, is not communitarian. We like people coming together and chatting and blah blah blah. Because we are depicted like that by the other side sometimes, right? But since you are not and we are not that we can provide the tools for this dialogue. So this is the dream. Every nightmare got a dream.
And as you said, the next several months are going to be very important now in terms of shaping that policy for the future. Professor Barca, thank you so much for your insights and your views. Ladies and gentlemen, perhaps you can thank Professor Barca. Thank you very much.